So here we have Arduino Lab 10, the zero trope, something like that. Basically, in the end, we want to get the motor to spin, which you can see from this odd contraption. The motor is inside the Starbucks cup, the wire is fed through the Starbucks lady. And then underneath, it's taped up, and that allows the zoetrope to freely spin. And we can get our images. Try to get this right. Great. Which you can see the flower on the end. Too much. Basically see the flower on the inside. Hey, it grows and chomps. The Mario flower. Okay. Now, how I was controlling that was with the potentiometer. The potentiometer itself controls the amount, basically the signal input, 0 to 1023, and in doing so, that controls the amount of voltage that is input into the motor, and the 9-volt battery powers the motor, and in doing so, that controls how much voltage controls the speed of the motor. Now, we also have two switches over here. This initial one right here deals with the on-off. It allows the current flow or cuts off the current flow. And how the program basically tells this is it continually runs the loop, and it sees if it's pressed. If it's pressed, basically a short high is sent through the code that will turn it off, and then if it's pressed again, it'll send another, which basically turns it back on. The secondary switch, the one on to the right there, that one deals with reversing the motor, because when we initially turn it on, we don't know which way the program actually has the motor spinning. So what we do is we turn it on, test it, then we switch it if needed. Okay, so how it's powered, you typically have your, how the coding is powered initially is through the big yellow wire fed through the laptop. That is then fed into, you have the current flow going through the switches with their resistors right there. You also have it going into the potentiometer. The potentiometer then has, if you can kind of follow that yellow line, and feeds into the analog over to here. That's input to the board. The board then reads that, and it fed back through pin 9 and pin 4. It's hard to see in there. Those two pins are then fed into the basically it's running through a loop that is then fed through the H bridge with the capacitors in it. The H bridge basically holds multiple capacitors, so we wouldn't have to use a secondary board, keep it easier. And then 9-volt battery is also, as you can see here, it's also feeding power into the H bridge. And that then powers up the 9-volt motor. The motor spins the zoetrope, and with the potentiometer, the user can speed to make the inside picture appear to move. Lastly, the second, I already talked about that. So, yeah, there's the code. Demonstrate one last time real quick. Potentiometer. That turns good. Now I'm actually going to turn it off. Press it again, turn it on. First switch, go for the second one. We'll actually reverse. There we go. As you can see, it looks funny. It's going backwards as if it's shrinking back into it. Now make it look as if it's growing. And there we go. That's the potentiometer.